He was the man the internet turned into a myth. The fighter people joked could defeat time itself. For years, his name became shorthand for invincibility, a symbol of strength so exaggerated it felt almost supernatural. But behind that legend, something didn't fully add up. As time passed, subtle cracks began to appear in the story fans believed. Moments were overlooked, details quietly ignored, and questions slowly surfaced. How could someone so unstoppable begin to fade without explanation? The deeper you look, the more unsettling it becomes. Because behind the jokes, behind the viral facts, and behind the larger-than-life persona, there was a real man. And his story isn't just about strength, it's about the hidden cost of becoming a legend. What really happened wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, gradual, and far more human than anyone expected. Before the fame, before Hollywood, he was just a quiet boy growing up in a small town in Oklahoma, born Carlos Ray Norris. Nothing about his early life hinted at greatness. He wasn't athletic, confident, or popular. In fact, he struggled with shyness and even had a slight stutter. School wasn't a place where he stood out. It was a place where he often felt invisible. At home, things were even harder. His father battled alcoholism, creating an unstable environment that left lasting emotional scars. Fear became something he learned to live with. But in that difficult upbringing, there was one constant source of strength: his mother. She carried resilience and determination, quietly holding the family together. When his parents divorced, it forced a major change. That moving to California gave him a fresh start, but it didn't instantly transform him. Confidence didn't come easily. It would take something much bigger to reshape his life. That turning point came when he joined the Air Force. Sent to South Korea, far from everything familiar, he discovered martial arts almost by accident. What started as curiosity quickly became purpose. For the first time, he found something he could fully commit to. Training gave him discipline, structure, and a sense of control he had never experienced before. He wasn't trying to become famous. He was trying to become stronger than the version of himself he used to be. The shy boy slowly began to disappear. In his place, someone new was forming. And this was also when he adopted the name Chuck, a change that symbolized more than convenience. It marked the beginning of a new identity. By the time he returned home, he was no longer the same person. He had confidence, skill, and direction. But success wasn't immediate. Life still demanded responsibility, and the journey was far from easy. Back in the United States, he balanced work, family, and his passion for martial arts. He worked regular jobs while opening a small karate school, slowly building something from the ground up. Early competition didn't bring instant victories. He lost matches, faced setbacks, and struggled to prove himself. But quitting was never an option. Each loss became fuel for improvement. He trained harder, refined his technique, and kept pushing forward. Then everything changed. He began winning. Not just occasionally, but consistently. By the late 1960s, he had become a dominant force in competitive karate, holding titles and staying undefeated for years. His name started gaining recognition, not just in martial arts circles, but beyond. Celebrities sought him out for training. His reputation grew, and so did his confidence. But even during his rise, life reminded him of its harsh realities. Personal loss struck deeply, shaping the man he would become. Hollywood entered his life at the perfect moment. A chance opportunity to act alongside a global martial arts icon introduced him to the world in a way no tournament ever could. The fight scene that followed became legendary, showcasing not just skill but presence. Audiences saw something different: authenticity. He wasn't acting like a fighter, he was one, and that authenticity became his biggest advantage. Soon, film roles followed. He built a career not on flashy tricks, but on real movement, real impact, and real discipline. The 1980s became his defining era. Movie after movie reinforced his image as the ultimate action hero. But behind the scenes, the cost was building. Injuries piled up. Strain on his body became constant. While audiences saw perfection, his body quietly absorbed the damage. Every kick, every stunt, every fight added to a growing toll that no one could see. The next chapter of his life brought him into millions of homes through television. His role as a Texas Ranger turned him into more than an action star. It made him a weekly presence in people's lives. The show wasn't just about fighting crime. It carried messages of discipline, justice, and morality. It resonated with families and built a deeper connection with audiences. Week after week, he delivered performances that blended action with value. Even behind the camera, he remained committed to authenticity, ensuring the martial arts stayed real. The show's success turned him into a cultural icon of the 1990s. But while the world saw strength and consistency, time was still moving forward. Age, injuries, and years of physical strain were quietly accumulating. He continued to perform, to train, and to inspire, but the human body has limits, even for someone who seemed to defy them. Away from the spotlight, his life was grounded in family and faith. He wasn't just an action hero, he was a father, a husband, and a man deeply committed to his beliefs. His personal world was far more private than his public image suggested. He built a life centered around stability, raising children, running businesses, and supporting causes he believed in. Martial arts became more than a profession. It became a tool to guide others. Through programs for young people, he focused on discipline and character, helping shape future generations. His faith played a central role, guiding his decisions and giving him strength beyond the physical. This quieter side of his life rarely made headlines, but it defined who he truly was. The man behind the legend wasn't just strong, he was grounded, reflective, and deeply committed to living with purpose. In his later years, he still appeared energetic, active, and full of life. Even into his 80s, he continued training, teaching, and inspiring others. To the outside world, it looked like nothing had changed. He still moved with precision, still carried the same presence, still embodied strength, but beneath that surface, decades of wear had taken their toll. His body had endured years of intense physical stress. Injuries that were once manageable had become permanent. Strain had built up quietly over time, yet he never publicly complained. He maintained the image, stayed active, and continued to push forward. To fans, he remained the same unstoppable figure, but reality was different. The signs were there, just not visible. And when the final moment came quickly, without warning, leaving everyone shocked by how suddenly everything changed. The end wasn't dramatic, but it was powerful. Just hours before, he was active, engaged, and full of energy. Then, suddenly, everything shifted. A medical emergency brought everything to a halt, and the transition from life to loss happened faster than anyone expected. It wasn't a battle fought publicly, it was quiet, private, and deeply personal. Surrounded by family, he passed with dignity, away from the spotlight he had spent decades in. The speed of it left people stunned. How could someone so strong fade so quickly? But the truth is, strength doesn't make someone immune. The body carries everything, every impact, every strain, every year, and eventually, it reaches its limit. His final moments reflected his life, disciplined, private, and grounded in what mattered most: family, faith, and peace. In the end, the myth and the man became two different stories. The legend suggested invincibility, but the truth revealed something far more meaningful. He wasn't unstoppable because he never broke. He was unstoppable because he kept going despite everything. His life wasn't about perfection, it was about perseverance. Every injury, every challenge, every hardship became part of a larger story of resilience. The world may remember the jokes, the exaggerated strength, and the larger-than-life image, but the real story is deeper. It's about a quiet boy who transformed himself, a man who pushed his limits for decades, and a human being who gave everything to his craft. In the end, that's what makes his story powerful. Not the myth, but the reality behind it.